Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to meeting 4 of the Central Area Elementary School Boundary Study. I'd like to invite our committee members to please make your way to your seats based on the colored labels on your lanyards or name tags. Welcome everyone, including our observer section of our parent observers. Tonight is meeting 4 for the committee. Our team at Cropper GIS at each of your 6 workstations has provided you with the 4 maps that were available in the previous 2 public information sessions, as well as 4 new maps for you to review this evening. And we'll be getting started with that shortly. Just a few housekeeping tips. Do take a moment to familiarize yourself with the exits. In the event of an emergency, our best exit is out the door we came in, through the cafeteria, in the rear of the cafeteria, or out to the vestibule and to your left, out to the parking lot. We ask you please take a moment to sign in at the pink sheets for our observers or the green sheets for our committee members. In the event of an emergency that we did have to evacuate, we would use those sheets to take attendance out in the parking lot to make sure we have accountability for everyone. There is no mask policy at this time at BCPS, but we are aware that a little bit of illness has been going around, so we do have masks in the back if you would like to avail yourselves to them, and we ask that you all please respect your neighbor's preferences for personal space and use of masks. All the materials from this meeting will be posted tomorrow, and all previous materials are posted on our website at www.bcps.org. You can find that link at the bottom of the page under the Resources tab, and then following the link to the Central Area Elementary School Boundary Study. Our survey concluded, I believe, December 17th. It ran through the 2 public information sessions and concluded, I believe, December 17th. Committee members were emailed with the survey results, and copies of that are in your packet tonight. Each table also has a complete packet that includes the about 90 pages of the comments in case anyone needs to refer back to that. Otherwise, the comments are available on the website. Okay. Comments are, the committee members have also received updates regarding publicly submitted comments, which were updated to our website as early as this week. One final note, we do ask our observers, we do welcome you. We do ask that you please respect the committee space and please do not interfere with the committee while they're working this evening. And just one final reminder, we are live streaming tonight for our folks at home. So committee members, please, if you would like to speak this evening, please raise your hand to be recognized, and we'll come around to you with a microphone to make sure that we capture your voice for our live stream. And with that, I will give it over to Mr. Matt Cropper.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, thank you, committee. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you all had a good break and back refreshed and recharged. It's our 4th committee meeting tonight. We have an opportunity, you have an opportunity to finalize the process tonight if you guys feel like you're ready. So, but we want to cover some things before we get into the meat of the materials and things. Just review the agenda. We've got survey results which we sent to you guys in advance. We sent you those before the holiday, so you had a chance hopefully to take a look through those and study and look through some of the information. We have updated the statistical data with the current this year's September 30th enrollment. So that's another big update. You'll see the numbers have been updated to reflect the latest and greatest information. And then we have all of the mapping reflects that as well. I'm going to break into small groups like we always do and take a look at the survey results and just work with your small groups. Really, at this point, we're starting to think about not thinking about how many maps we can make, but at this point, we're hoping that most stones have been unturned and you guys can start thinking and start getting towards which map do you think is best to serve all children in the study area. What's best for all students in this area, and what's the best solution. So start thinking towards a recommendation and start to narrow down which map you think is best for the students in this area. We're going to do a process of nominating options to go for recommendation, and then a vote if we feel like we're ready for a vote tonight. If there's a lot of changes coming through and a lot of new maps, then we're probably going to have to defer to the next meeting so that we can make sure that we put numbers together for you so that you're informed on what you're voting on. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So here's our second to last meeting. Like we said, we have identified a recommendation here. If you're ready, you guys can be. We're prepared to enable you to vote tonight. If not, we will be back together on January 25th, the end of the month, for the final meeting, for the final to vote and finalize a recommendation. Hold on. Let's get a microphone, Chris.
Just that you said that the numbers are updated on the online map. Are they updated on that too, or are those not? That's all.
Yes, the planning block numbers on the online map are updated as well, and so.
Check 1, 2. To clarify, those are being updated. The website's been a little busy this evening, but the final set of ABCD maps are not updated yet. We will get them updated. They're on your paper maps here tonight and in your book. They'll be updated by tomorrow morning.
So the materials for that, would you refer to the actual handout materials online? Those will be available tomorrow morning. The online interactive map has all the latest maps on there, and the updated planning block counts are up. Yes, those are updated. Just a quick recap. I think we've all pretty covered this pretty well and pretty understanding of what our rationale is and why we're here. But there's overcrowding that exists in some schools in the area. There's a need for capacity relief. The number of schools, as you can see here, that have some overcrowding, and the purpose is to relieve schools that are projected to be overcrowded and maximize use of space in the area. Try to make things as equitable as possible. A large study area we've been working with. We have a good committee. It's been a really good, productive group that we've been working with. And these are the schools that have been involved, and happy to have been working with you guys over the past couple of months on this process. So the objectives are to provide capacity relief to the Central Area Elementary and also schools, and also maintain or increase diversity among schools to reflect the diversity of the region and the school system. Those are your key objectives. Public information we had before the holiday break, November 15th and 16th. We had a lot of good input at that. We had an online survey that went all the way to the December 17th, and we received 1,301 comments or respondents to the survey. So we had really good participation, really good input from people from across this whole study area. What we like to say is those survey results, just utilize that as another piece of information in the cadre of information you have, all the maps and statistics. Don't make the survey the end-all be-all decision point for you, is what we recommend, is just take it in, study it, see what they say, and see if there's anything gleaning information from that can bring you to a recommendation that's closer to adhering to our objectives. So just use it as another piece, another tool in your arsenal as you keep working towards finalizing a recommendation. Don't make it the only sole determinant. The results were pretty balanced from the options. You could see the largest percentage of respondents that are strongly in favor or somewhat in favor of C, B, and A. They were really close, 50.9 for C, 50 for B, and 49.4 for A. So you had a lot of people who really liked all of the maps. D was the one that was sort of the outlier. It had 44.5% respondents who were opposed or strongly opposed to option D. So that was the one that was sort of the outlier between the four maps that were presented at the meeting in terms of people who were opposed to that particular map. And then we also provide information in your summary report that talks about why they supported a reason, and we give you information. We ask them questions that align with the considerations in Policy 1280. And so this just gets you an idea of if the people who support it, why did they support it, and what was their rationale for supporting a map. We also ask them the same thing if you're opposed to a map or you're concerned about a map, what was your rationale? So just to give you information to help keep you aligned with decision making as it relates to the board policy and the overall objectives for this process. Like I said, we have updated statistics that reflect the most recent September 30th enrollment. We didn't see major changes. There were some swings, but everything was tracking relatively close to what we were looking at with end of the year. So I wouldn't anticipate any major surprises with the updated enrollment, but there were some fluctuations, so be mindful of it and take a look at it and see what you think. There are, and this was drafted, we have 7 maps, but we did receive a late incomer just a couple days ago that we worked to put in here and have it prepared for you. So there are 8 maps. We wanted to do was we wanted to give any input that the committee gave us over this break. We wanted to make sure we captured it so that you guys could be prepared to vote tonight if you were ready. And so we took any input that was provided to us and put it on paper so that you could have a discussion about it. So there's B2, B3, and also a B4 map. And then you'll see that B4 as a map insert at the very back because we didn't have time to embed it. Printing had already happened, so we have it as an insert. And then there's a C2 map. So these are variations off of B and C. 3 variations off of B, 1 off of C. And then the original A through D that you brought to the public are still here for your consideration as a committee. You've got 8.5 by 11 maps. Plot maps are on your tables just like we always have them. And the online interactive map also has all of the updated maps on them now as well. And as Mr. Mercado said, copies of the handouts, these will all be available online for the public tomorrow morning so that you could also benefit from reviewing all of the information the committee is looking at tonight. Same information, same format, I should say. Utilization, looking at how things are compared from school to school, and taking a look at these and evaluating these. We have the demographic data for each particular option, like we always bring to you. Numbers of students impacted, like we've discussed, just so that you could see. And again, the later option B3 is not in this table, but it's included in your insert, your one-pager insert for B4. All the data is on that one sheet. Feeder pattern splits, so you can see that. Same formats, just that everything is updated with some of the new information. And then walk zone data. So we've been prepared tonight to give you everything you can. If you feel like you're ready to vote tonight, we did everything we could to try to get you the data and maps as latest and greatest as possible to inform you if you feel like you're ready tonight. But we will see. So we do have a small group exercise after this, and then once we get done with this, then we're going to go through a process of nominating. So the thought is that tonight, if you're comfortable with one of these maps for nomination, we can move to a vote. If maps out of the small group exercise, if maps come out that are edits to maps, changes that involve several planning blocks, removing a lot of things, it's probably a better idea to come back to the later January meeting so that we can put those numbers together for you and bring it back to you. Unless you feel like the changes that you're suggesting, they come up after small group changes. If their suggested changes are small enough to where you have a good understanding of the impact and you feel as a committee you're ready to vote tonight even with some suggested changes, you have the ability to do that as a committee. We're here to facilitate your work, but it's up to you guys to decide. So are there any questions before we let you break into your small groups, or does anybody have anything they'd like to say before we break you into small groups and let you look at some of the new materials and survey data? Anything else before we let you break? Okay, well, then we're going to let you get to it, and we'll be browsing around. We'll give you some time to take a look.
Just 1 second. If any group would like to hang, a few maps to take a look at, I know it's a lot to process on a table. We can certainly be around with some tape to help you hang a few maps if that would be helpful to your group's processing. And in addition, we do have Spanish interpreter available if anyone desires Spanish interpretation. Just come see us in the back of the room.
We're going to give you guys about 10 more minutes. I know that some of you guys are pretty much wrapped up, but some of you are still having good, fruitful conversations. 10 more minutes, and then we'll regroup with the full group. Okay, you got about five minutes, guys, and we'll be regroup with the full committee. Okay, guys. We could probably sit and talk about these till midnight tonight, but I think we're at a point where we can get together as a full group and continue the discussion. So maybe if we sort of regrouped at our tables and just prepared for a large group discussion here as next steps. So a lot of good deliberation around the maps, a lot of different things I'm hearing from different community members, committee members. You guys are really doing a good job dissecting these maps and really diving into all the numbers and data. And we appreciate it. I know BCPS really appreciates your efforts on this. So we are going to, the next part of this process is to look at nominating maps. But I think actually before we get into the nomination, why don't we just have a little recap on some discussions that you guys had at your small groups, just so that we can hear and everybody, the whole committee can benefit from your discussions before we get to a nomination process if we're ready for that. So who wants to, I know we still have some conversation over here. You guys ready to talk with the whole group? Let's see, I think, why don't we start back here with people who look like they're more simmered down. Let's see, how about the back group? Would you guys want to share any thoughts or conversations you had, or any questions that you have about the maps that other committee members may be able to help? Any comments from that back group?
I think generally we do have a lot of thoughts. We didn't come to consensus, but we liked map C2, which was a rewrite. It captures a lot of the, I'm going to let you speak to this because you'll speak to it more eloquently than me, but there is a lot of attention to detail to try to address many of the points that so many schools were bringing up. So if I can pass it over here.
Sure.
Oh God, I don't know where my notes are. Okay, so C2, based on like the public feedback from being in person and the comments, I really felt, and I know the survey numbers were very, very close, but overall I felt like map C really addressed a lot of the issues and had the most support. So for me it made sense to use that as a jumping off point and then address the biggest issues in map C, and that's how I came to map C2. And I had a lot of help from a Carroll Manor parent who came up with the idea of splitting. I wish I had a map next to me.
There's a map back on the wall if you want to look at that map back there.
I'm going to go right here. So C2, right here, this used to be one big planning block, and it moved 50 kids from, or potentially 50 kids from Carroll Manor to Jacksonville. There was a lot of pushback from Carroll Manor, and I understand it's disruptive. But her idea was actually to split this planning block in two, because the northern part of the planning block is Blenheim Road. And Blenheim Road starts here. It starts in the Jacksonville zone. And then as you go along, it goes into Carroll Manor, and then it goes back up into Jacksonville. And it just kind of, transportation-wise, it seemed to make a lot of sense to just put the whole loop into Jacksonville. And it moves the smallest number of people from Carroll Manor to Jacksonville. So you still have you're still utilizing the open seats at Jacksonville, which for me, being in the densest part of the central zone, like not using West Towson open seats and not using Jacksonville open seats. I know Mace Chapel has open seats, but just the way things have kind of panned out, I don't really need a lot of room from them, but not utilizing open seats when we don't have any new schools coming is just really unacceptable to me. So that was that compromise with Carroll Manor, and I thought that was pretty huge, and it just was really insightful. And another thing is that map C2 is the only map in the entire study that actually relieves or keeps Cromwell under 100%. And between Hampton and Cromwell, like I don't even know how many thousands of units. Okay, I'm sorry. So between all of the, it also relieves Hampton adequately though, and B2 doesn't. So it keeps, what the major thing that I changed with from between C and C2 was BB 423 was in Cromwell, had been moved to Cromwell, but they go to middle school at Dumbarton, and there's plenty of room at West Towson, so it made more sense to move them over to West Towson and utilizing those open seats. Thank you. What else? There were a couple other changes, like basically only keeping the apartments, the Rogers Forge apartments, and just like moving those to Rogers Forge because they can walk. And I know there was like one little adjustment that was recommended, which is like there's one bus that goes to Rogers Forge, and it was to move them to West Towson. And it also keeps obviously Stoneleigh intact, and we're very thankful for the relief that they would be providing Hampton if they were to actually take 427. Well, I think that's kind of like the major stuff, but I know that in maps A and all of the B maps, Hampton really just doesn't get the relief that it needs, and I really don't want to be here again in a couple years. And by moving 85 kids all the way from Pine Grove and moving them all the way to Hampton, you're just moving almost 100 kids right into like the densest part of the central zone, and that just doesn't make sense to me when Pine Grove has options to move north where there's room, and there's potential options to also do another study with Parkville elementary schools, because there's plenty of room within the other Parkville elementary schools. And I think that between moving some people north towards where there's room and moving some people south, it could really give meaningful relief to Pine Grove. Talking like, and I know that there's like a couple other families here that do live in PB 1001, 1003, and 1002, which would be potentially moved to Carroll Manor. And there was a lot of comments and a lot of support to actually, like, they want to go to Carroll Manor and they're okay with that. And I know that overall the numbers, it wasn't like the favorite option, but I think when you consider the people that actually live there, that would actually move to Carroll Manor, there was a ton of support for that. Yeah, and just maps A and B, they hurt Hampton's diversity. They don't give us enough relief. We don't have enough room to get our pre-K back. Like, Hampton has been through a lot, and also just the fact of having to lose, like, I don't even know, like almost 200 kids just to add in 85 just seems like unnecessarily disruptive to a community that's already been through so much. And it just kind of adds like insult to injury. Like, nobody wants to lose kids, but we need some relief, and we don't want to lose more than we need to. So I think I've touched on all the bases, sorry.
Is there anybody else from that group who wants to? Yes, sir.
So the first thing I just really want to say is, just as a general thing, I think it's really unfortunate that Pine Grove is in this study, or that the study wasn't larger. As Magdalene just mentioned, there are schools near them that feed into the same middle school that could have been in a study. There could have been a Northeast study that had both the Pine Grove middle schools as well as the Parkville schools, and potentially go and just could have solved the problems without having to cause people to move into another school where they'd be a minority of kids going to a different middle school. So I think that's unfortunate, especially when the middle school study, which hasn't even come into effect yet, actually consolidated all of Pine Grove into one middle school. So I think it's really an unfortunate oversight on this. So, and honestly, if I had the ideal thing, I would say if we could start a study today for Pine Grove to get people, and I don't know if you can comment on that, but if you could start a study today for Pine Grove to be involved, to maybe kind of be able to shift kids over to Kearney, that area, that would have been awesome. And maybe we wouldn't have to have some of this stuff. But anyway, so that's one thing. So my point, I would say, is when I looked at it, I looked at the survey. I tried to go, very specifically line by line in terms of the different schools. It was interesting because, of course, the final results for the different maps was all very close, but it wasn't particularly close when you looked at it from a school-by-school basis. There was almost invariably different schools that supported different things, either supported, and based on the comments and just, wanted different things. And there's two things I think that were just a very general thing you can come from all that, which is schools that were not overcrowded, their biggest thing was they did not want to be touched. They did not want to, sorry, let me rephrase that. They did not want to lose anybody. So a school that felt like they were okay doesn't want to lose anybody. That's true for, Riderwood, it's true for West Townsend, it's true for, pretty much, Timonium, which feels like they're fine even though the numbers up there, that's great. So that was one thing. And then the second thing is the schools that are overcrowded wanted relief. Those are really the two things we saw. So the schools that were overcrowded looked for, they voted for things that got them relief as much as possible. And the schools that were not crowded and doesn't need relief voted for things that wouldn't touch them as much as possible. So I think it's a very understandable thing to go and see that from each of the schools. So when I looked at the specific things, there was certain, obviously, West Townsend wanted their stuff back. There was some pretty obvious things. The Padonia was fine with that. Rogersford was a little bit variable, but I think that we've come to consensus where they want the apartments, but they think that the one bus area would make sense to not go there, just because it's a separate bus, and maybe if that was on if that went to West Townsend, then it would be a combined bus with them and one fewer bus in circulation, which is great for our transportation issues. But the big thing that I got out of it that I would be concerned is Pine Grove clearly voted for A and B. It wasn't close. They vote 2/3 of the votes was for, 2/3, and for C and D, 2/3 of the votes was against. That is true. That's on the survey. I'm saying that's what happened on the survey. I'm just saying that that's the thing. And I feel like when you look at a school and they have, the entire student body, not just maybe some people that are more active and maybe more visible, that you have to take into account what they are interested in. And I think the points about Hampton getting people is very accurate. So I can totally understand that. I think we need to at least consider, can we get Hampton to a reasonable number, even and taking into account what Pine Grove voted for. That was where I was. Now, before this whole thing was, I was actually very much pushing for Pine Grove to send people to Carroll Manor and Carroll Manor to send people to Jacksonville. I thought that made the most sense. But my whole thing was, the linchpin was going to be, how does Pine Grove vote? Because I heard very mixed things. I have spoken to many Pine Grove people. I know that there are some people that definitely want to do that move, that want to do this. And I know there's many people who don't want to do this. I don't think it's as overwhelming as some people have suggested that is. I think it's very mixed. And that's why, to me, I was curious, when people are able to do the survey, what could this show? And it definitely showed that they favored A and B. So that's my take on it, is I think that we should not, as a committee, just say we can ignore the public sentiment. Otherwise, why are we going through all these? Why are we engaging the public then? So that's why and for the record, so I'm a Carroll Manor person. I have zero problems. I actually think that idea of moving people into Jacksonville, totally reasonable. I think if the issue is relieving Carroll Manor, sending them to Jacksonville, totally on board with that. I'm just concerned about doing what's right for Pine Grove based on what its constituents want. So.
I do just want to point out, though, that regarding the survey, there were people in the PTA at Pine Grove who stood up and from a skewed perspective were suggesting that the school would somehow suffer if the northern parts of the school were broken apart. And they urged everybody at the PTA, sort of with tearful, impassioned pleas, to to vote for maps A and B. None of those people would have been privy to the information that we were just talking about, with 85, almost 100 kids being bused clear across town from Pine Grove to go to a school in another town practically. So that doesn't make sense. So that I don't want to rely solely on that survey, and I'm glad that that was brought up at the beginning, not to, for that reason. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you.
Can I? Yes? Okay. I wonder if the numbers were the same, if Pine Grove would get the same amount of relief from Hampton or from Carroll Manor, and those numbers were the same, would the Pine Grove community feel differently? Because I think a lot of the Pine Grove community probably saw the numbers and they said, wow, we get more relief if we send 1004 to Hampton versus if we send 1001, 1002, and 1003 to Carroll Manor. So I think just like numbers-wise, I think that had a lot to do with it. But if we really push to have another more Parkville, have another study with more Parkville schools to help alleviate the southern part of Pine Grove, I think that would make a big difference. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And I think, and certainly if you had more kids, or the 80 kids going more towards Carroll Manor, I think that would have definitely also been the more popular option. I understand wanting as much relief as possible, because that's what our school is going through, so.
Group. Pat, go ahead, Paul, say again. You weren't on the mic.
We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. Anybody on this side?
Hi. So my group, the blue group, really evaluated. We were really taking a good look at the new maps. And I think the consensus was that we really favored map B for a couple of reasons. One was Pine Grove, who is very overcrowded right now. They are at a relief of that with a 93% utilization rate on map B3. Hampton, who's also very overcrowded, I mean, both of those schools probably in the top 3 of being overcrowded, they're at 96 utilization rate, right? So I think that was optimal. Understanding that there's, more things coming and possibly, but at least getting them under 100%, I think was also helpful. Also, West Towson, it gets them to an 86% utilization rate, which I know that's actually much way below than kind of the average that we're seeing, but we have to realize for West Towson that they don't have any kind of green space to put other trailers there, so getting them kind of as low as possible would be really helpful to them because they don't have space to put, trailers anywhere. So I think for our group, if we had to vote today, I think a lot of us, or the majority of us, would vote for a B3. Yep, you want to speak?
And forgive me, I was on the impression the consensus was more C2, but it's okay. I'm Jason Garber. You may remember me from such schools like Cromwell Valley. My first concern is one that's been reflected earlier. We don't want to be here another 3 to 4 years. We know that no matter what map we pick here, there are projects on the books that are going to be going to Cromwell Valley in largely every map that is not already accounted for. There's a 600 unit one that's going to be put up on Luskin's Hill. There's another one, again, at Joppa and Loch Raven that they're talking about. That seems to be a little more tenuous at the moment. But there's also the one at Towson Place, which I know is a real one as well. That one, they're talking 400, 500 units from what I recall. So we're going to be here again no matter what. With that in mind, the one that comes up with the best bounce from my perspective was C2. And I think that a lot of the problems that have been aired in this room over the past several meetings have been addressed via C2. So I certainly give you credit for all your work on it. In the end, I do think it's prudent that whenever we have these processes moving forward, that we do take into account projects that are known. Because we don't want to keep doing this again and again and again. Well, I know maybe you guys do because it helps you guys. But communities, staff, administrators, to have the constant upheaval, disruption, uncertainty is not ideal. It affects long-term planning. It affects short-term planning. For these reasons, I just urge everyone who's listening to please start considering planning projects as part of any of these processes moving forward and not just react after the fact.
There are, we have provided the group the enrollment projections that do account for future developments and things like that, and development information. So that has been provided to the committee as part of your consideration. But it's valid concern that there's ongoing development that can further, cause capacity challenges at schools. So I think it's a valid point for sure. Any other? Let's see. When it comes to this group.
I'm just going to add on to that. Do I have to stand? First of all, I want everyone here, y'all, you are rock stars. Pat yourselves on the back. We are all doing this for free because BCPS can't get it together. Baltimore County can't get it together. And to add on to that, take this passion and go to the county, because they're the ones that are going to say, oh, wow, you need a new school for all these apartments, right? They're not going to do anything because we're complacent. They're only going to do something if we go to it with our votes and just talking to them, because technically they represent us. So it's the state and it's the county that has the choice about whether we get to build new schools that reflect all of the development that keeps going on. So thank you all for being here. Please continue this passion and take it to the county, because BCPS has kind of got their hands tied with what we can do, right?
Thank you. Anybody else from this group, any thoughts or conversations about the maps or anything like that you want to share? Okay, no problem. How about this table right here? And you guys have any thoughts? Anybody else? Or we could just show hands if you guys, if there's running down smaller numbers. Go ahead.
We didn't have very many strong opinions at this table, and I think we're looking forward to the next steps.
All right. Good deal. Anybody else have any thoughts or anything they want to share from the?
The other thing I just wanted to mention was, because in terms of engaging with BCPS, I think that's really the big thing. I mean, there's people out there talking about how Baltimore County does not get the funds that it should when developers build stuff. They should be getting funds, and they should be allocated directly to school buildings whenever there's new development. So I mean, that's a huge, big deal, and that's something we need to pressure the Board of Education, the politicians, everybody to go and do right. That if there's developments, if there's more people moving to an area, there needs to be schools to correspond to that. So I think that's a really important thing. And the one thing, though, I will say that the Board of Education could do in the short term to at least do something is regarding, and I know this is beyond the scope of this, but is regarding the magnet school. There's no reason for that to be at a location that is so crowded. I don't personally understand, I don't understand why there is a magnet school anyway, but if people can justify it, they feel it should, why don't we move it to a school that has seats? I know we've talked about what can we do with Jacksonville's seats? Why not put it there? That's an easy solution to free up a ton of seats in the area where they're actually needed. So okay. I know it's beyond the purview of this, but maybe somebody in the Board of Education is listening, and maybe they'll think about doing it. So I wanted to bring it up.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm the principal of Jacksonville, and while we have open seats, we're fine to have families come and join us. I think that the magnet program is where it's located because it's centrally accessible to many, many families. If you're asking students from Cromwell to travel to Jacksonville, they're going to be on a bus an hour and a half each way. And that's, I'm okay as a principal for any of the maps as long as we are doing what is best for children. That is my job 365 days of the year. Are we making decisions not based on what adults feel, what is best for children at all times? I live that way in my personal life. I live that way in my school life. And when these changes come down, I cannot urge families enough to make sure that you're maintaining positivity with your own children, because every single one of these schools in the central area are fantastic schools. They are led by fantastic principals. I work with these people every day. So we need to make sure that whatever changes are being made, that we are pushing that positivity, not to say, oh my gosh, you have to go to such and such school now, because what we say and believe as parents and adults goes directly to our kids. So, correct. We need to be looking at these maps based on numbers and based on what's best for kids.
Okay, so let's. So why don't we? The magnet discussion is always valuable. It's really not something that we can do. So, not something that's really in our purview. So, we'll have to table that discussion for a later time. But back to the maps. Back to the this boundary change process. Now's the time. We're going to see if you guys feel like you're ready for a vote tonight. So, and it all depends on how things get nominated. So, we're going to do a nomination process, and just like we did for the public info session, where any member can nominate a map for consideration and for consideration for vote, and then if that map gets nominated, it's going to take it to the wall. So, are we going to clear this area, Chris, out so that we could maybe use that for a staging area? Okay, well then, yeah, why don't we do that? So instead of getting too far ahead of ourselves, we don't want to assume that you guys are ready. So we want to solidify and make sure that there's consensus on if you do want to vote tonight or not. If you want, I heard a lot of people say yes, some people say it. No, so let's just make sure that we have consensus. So we're going to pass around the clickers to get some voting, getting our voting procedure lined up here. And we're going to start with a vote to see if you are ready to vote on a recommendation tonight. You need any help passing them?
How's that going to fit into the process?
It'll be a nomination with changes.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Give me a nod when it's the right time.
Okay.
So like one block I want to move and all the maps that have been nominated so far.
Okay.
Okay. I just want to make sure I don't mess it
Yeah,
up.
well, while we're handing out clickers, let's just have, there's a question from the committee about the nomination. Here you go. Now's a good time to ask that while we're handing out clickers, I think.
All right, so I'm quite happy with the modified maps which have come out. There is one small change, one block I would like to move in all of them, and I just want to understand what the process is for doing that. So we do it as orderly as process and don't stay here all night.
Sure. So what we typically say is we have maps on the table, and if a nomination comes forward with changes like we had last time, but for a lot of substantial changes, we usually say we'll defer to the next meeting so that we can run numbers. If it's a change that's small, that you feel is small enough that's acceptable to incorporate and still do a vote tonight, you can do that. But if it's something that's a substantial change and impacts a lot of students, it may be something you may want to consider waiting and seeing how the numbers play out. But if you've kind of done the numbers in your math and see how and you feel confident with how it's going to turn out, then it may be something that you could proffer as a nomination. Is there anybody who's not a principal and on the committee who does not have a clicker yet? Did all the voting members have clickers? If you didn't get a clicker, raise your hand. I think we got everybody. All the voting members have them. So does that answer your question about nomination? I think it does. Okay. So we got them all? Okay. To vote, yeah. So as he's getting set up on the screen, this is a vote. This is just a vote to solidify and make sure we have consensus that you guys are ready to finalize a recommendation tonight. The results of this, if the results say no, then we will wait until the next meeting, but to do that final vote. But this is just a vote to see if you guys are ready, comfortable voting tonight. So.
If we vote tonight, that means that the public will not have a chance to comment on the new maps that we're recommending. Is that correct?
Well, there is
online, all the comments online that we've been taking into account this whole entire time. The new maps that we just got, we won't have any chance to hear any kind of commenting on those maps. Is that correct?
Correct. The committee.
Okay.
The committee would not. There is a process after this where the board has the public hearing, and then they have the ability. So there's still opportunities for the public to provide input to the board. But you are correct that if you make your recommendation tonight, your role in this process is done, and it's then in the board's hands to.
At the end of the month, no matter what, what changes the timeline?
If you
Does
vote,
that changes the timeline?
If you vote tonight on a recommendation, there's no need to have the January 25th committee meeting for you as a team. So we don't have to regroup on the 25th. Your work is done if you guys vote on a recommendation tonight. If a single vote, yes, and if you vote on this right here. If you vote no, then we will be coming back January 25th with one final meeting. We're looking for a majority, 51% or a majority of the committee.
Because I just want to make sure that we're not voting on a map because we don't want to come back to a meeting in a couple weeks, because we've done a lot of work so far up to this point, and we've had a lot of people have commented, and I just think that when people don't get a chance to voice their opinion, then that's when things get more ugly. And I don't know.
We don't want to rush you by any means.
We're not trying to rush anybody, but as we've walked around, we've heard people say that they're ready to vote for recommendation tonight. Not everybody grabs the microphone and speaks their mind. Some people just speak to each other and I hear. So we want to just give you the opportunity tonight, right now, to say, yes, I'm ready to vote on a recommendation tonight. We don't need to meet next time. Or no, I don't want to vote tonight on a recommendation, and we do need another meeting. And then if whatever 50% says, more than 50%, that's what we'll do.
I mean, I'd be as happy as anybody not to come back in 3 weeks, but I do think you make a really good point, which is the survey didn't actually, which had 1,000 respondents, as I understand it, didn't actually survey people on some of the maps that were presented tonight, correct? Like the ones with a number, B2, or these versions. So if we are following this process, like you said, of getting public, so yes, some people didn't speak, I didn't speak, we didn't speak, but if the point of this is to also get broad public comment, yeah, the board might have that chance, but we're basically voting on maps where we haven't had the chance to read the comments. And Michael's done a very good job, I think, of encouraging everybody, printing out the comments. I mean, there are a lot of comments. You can take them as you will, but it feels odd to me that additional maps are presented tonight that didn't have any public comments on them. And short of these, handful of observers who feel very strongly, we're not actually looking at comments from a broad group of the public. So just my thoughts. Thank you.
So I just want to make sure that if we don't vote tonight, which is fine, I completely understand, not everyone has seen these new maps and actually time to digest them and everything, but can we at least agree that no more new maps are introduced? Because that'll be really tough for us we'll go back in circles on this then.
The answer is it's up to the committee. If the committee
Can we vote on that?
If the committee decides next meeting that they still want one more tweak and they're ready to vote, then they can vote on that one more tweak. If you can think about it, if every time there's a change, we have to go back with a survey, we would for a long time. So it's up to the committee. We've only scheduled one more meeting, so we're giving you the opportunity. I know I'm repeating myself. We're giving the opportunity because some people had voiced it that they were ready to vote tonight. So we want to get a vote to find out how many people that really is. And if the majority wants to vote tonight, we will. If the majority does not want to vote tonight, then we won't.
Okay, so just to recap, everybody has a clicker. This is just to determine if you are ready to vote on a recommendation tonight, and then this would finalize your role in the process as a committee. So if you are ready to vote tonight, click A. If you are not ready to vote tonight and you'd like to regroup on the 25th and finalize it then, click on B. You click B if you want another meeting. If you want to meet again in 2 weeks to finalize the vote. You click A if you're ready to vote tonight and finalize the meeting tonight. Okay, votes are in. Okay, 61% voted yes in that we to move forward with a vote on a recommendation this evening. So it looks like we're going to move forward with the nomination process and then get into the voting process right after that. So with that said, Mike, can you switch us back to the other? There we go. Thank you. Okay. So now's the time. The floor is open. Go ahead. What did you? Let's see. Make sure. Okay.
C2.
C2 has been nominated. No, we're not doing seconding.
I nominate B2.
Say that one more time.
B2.
B2. Okay. B2.
B3.
Okay. B3 is on the floor.
I wanted to nominate C2 with a very small change that I think doesn't necessarily need a lot more counting and data. Just to be sure, it was C2, but moving 1502 from Rogers Forge back to West Towson. It's, to my understanding, the only bus that Rogers Forge has. And if they were to move to West Towson, Rogers Forge would be 100% walkers.
Sure, the one with 5 students in it.
Yes, there's one bus with 5 students.
Sure, yeah, that seems like a small enough number it really wouldn't skew the data much. Okay, she's nominating C2 with planning block 1502 at West Towson. And that's that small area, that only area of Rogers Forge that gets bused. You guys have discussed this several times over the last several committee meetings. So that's something. Let's see, a microphone for this gentleman right here.
I'll make it simple. I will withdraw my nomination of C2 and move forward with the amended C2.
Okay. Okay, so he's withdrawing C2 and he agrees with that small adjustment. So it's C2 with that small planning block adjustment. And now just C2 in its entirety C2 is not there anymore. C2 with changes. Yes. So this is, to see if there's a smaller number of maps that you want to consider for vote. And there may be a map out here that nobody likes, which there's no need to vote on it if it's not favored by any member of the committee.
May I suggest to the people who nominated map B2 and B3 to make the same change on that one?
Okay.
The difference between the maps shouldn't be Rogers Forge, is what I'm saying. If that's acceptable to people who nominated maps B2 and B3, can we? So the change that was made for map C2, PB 1502, moving from Rogers Forge to Westhausen, I would like to make that for maps B2 and B3, if that's acceptable.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I'm okay with that change.
Okay. So all of the maps that are nominated are to include that planning block adjustment, 1502 to Westhausen, and both of the B2 and B3 maps, with five students living in it. Okay. Any other nominations? Any other maps that a committee member feels that they should be considered for a recommendation? Last call. So we have 3 maps on the board: B2, B3, and C2 with that adjustment. Just one final recap on the maps that are nominated. We have B2, B3, and C2, all with the only adjustment to them is planning block 1502 coming out of Rogers Forge and into Westhausen. That's the only adjustment with the 5-student adjustment. So that those are the 3 maps that are on the floor for a vote. Okay? Yeah, why don't you guys take some time. We'll let you guys take a look at the maps, and before we cast a vote, we'll give you another 5-10 minutes or so, and then we can take a final vote. Okay.
Not everyone's going to be happy with anything you do. There's never an ideal situation. So changes forever. Yeah. But my question is, what is the likelihood that we
then it would walk it down. When you put it on, come on, what are you? And then they're like passing it. And we're like, I thought you were supposed to put these on.
And they were able, I mean, you can't say people weren't able to voice their opinion.
So funny, these kids, like the kids do so much technology.
That's where my comfort level is in that process. Is that I know I hear things and I don't ignore, but I don't weigh those voices. I weigh the vote.
The vote, yeah.
That's
See what the consensus
yes.
is. Yeah, it was clear. It's good.
And I told them that
She was saying, well, what happens if it's like feelings are going to get diluted because it's TV maps that are very similar. Yeah, it's a great process. It's about as diplomatic as it could get. Yeah.
it is democratic.
Democratic, yes.
Got plenty of time. We don't shut.
You know, and you run a big risk in changing things that rapid. You take the committee off of it, you run a risk because the BCPS has been doing this way since I've ever worked. 20 years I've been working with you. It's a headache trying to deal with the bias and like trudging through all the bias, but it is a very good democratic process. Yeah. Yeah.
I think having one of those cameras
It is.
that is good flash at.
You give them till 10 till.
But it would have been nice because you would.
So we're going to give you like till 10 till. You got 2 minutes. Is that okay? Do you guys need more time than that? 2 minutes. If you need more, that's fine. It's no problem. Okay, guys, are we ready to vote? Okay, I'll give you that. wants to pull B2 from? All right. One thing that just a committee member mentioned, you are the one that nominated B2, right? Okay. Okay. Okay, so the gentleman who nominated, committee member who nominated B2, he wants to pull that off, pull it off the table, and just focus on B3. So that is a change. So the person who nominated B2 is recanting that nomination. So with that information, if any other committee member felt strongly about B2, now would be the time for any committee member to put that back on the floor if they feel it's important or if they want to. Did you guys hear that over there? The B2 nomination has been recanted and taken off. So now it's just B3 and C2. But with that new information, any other committee member has the ability to nominate that if they feel that that's a map that they wanted to nominate. Okay? So it looks like we don't have any further nominations for B2. So B2 comes off. So we're down to 2 maps now, B3 and C2. All right. So is anybody not ready to vote yet? Does anybody need a little more time? I'm looking at this group over here. Paul, you check and see they're. Just making sure everybody is, they're still looking at the maps, just making sure that people are all prepared and ready to vote. We're going to give you they just need just a little more time, so bear with us. It's almost 8 o'clock. You have you to 8:30. Please bear with us. Just give them a little more time to make sure they're comfortable with their vote, and then we'll be voting. So stay tuned. Okay, is there anybody who's not ready? That looks like that group settled down a little bit from the maps. So it looks like everyone's in place. Is anybody not ready to vote yet? I think we look good. Okay. Now's the time, guys. So, okay, so. All eligible voting members can vote only for one of the maps. No principals have clickers, so these are only voting committee members. The third bullet does not apply if it's really looking for a 51% vote, and any map that has 51% or greater will be the map that's recommended. And this final recommended map will be the one that's presented to the board, and we will tell them the story of how we got there, what the maps that led up to this. And they'll have all the information that you guys have had so that they can benefit from all of this. So I think we're ready for a vote, Mike. Okay, so option C2 is A, option B3 is B. So if you want to recommend option C2 to the board, with those, both of them with that change, the 1502 planning block, if you want to recommend option C2, click A. If you want to recommend option B3, click B. Does everybody has cast their vote according to our information? I think we're good to go. Okay, let's see the results. Okay, option C2, can you slide that over? Option C2 got 72% of the votes. B3 had 27.8. So option C2 is the map that will be presented to the board for recommendation for this boundary change process. If we could just swap back. So, just, I can't thank you guys enough. I know that BCPS, I'm speaking on behalf of them, this is not an easy process. It's very emotional. You guys have done an awesome job. Thank you for your commitment and dedication to this process. So really, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate that. We do. If you're interested, we will be presenting to the recommendation to the board on Tuesday, February 27th at 6:30. You're welcome to attend, but committee members do not have to be there. Your work is, hard work is done at this point, and that's all we can ask of you at this point. But you're welcome to attend the board recommendation. There's also a board hearing March 6th at Lock Raven High School, and that's where the board will be there and open the floor for the public to give them their input regarding this recommendation, and the board will decide March 19th on a vote. You don't have to attend any of these meetings. So once again, thank you guys very much. You guys have a great new year, and thanks again. Have a great night.